Pratt gonna throw. Pratt pressured. It is picked off by Zayvon Collins. And the player we debuted at the beginning of the game is gonna end it for Tulsa in double overtime. You have got to be kidding me. Zayvon Collins, Tulsa, double-digit comeback, book it. The Golden Hurricane has blown in again, and they will win in an all-time thriller.
Listen, we give you scholarships, we give you, stipends and meals and a place to live. We give you nice uniforms. I can't give you guts, and I can't give you heart. And tonight, hey, it was BYOG, bring your own guts. And they brought some guts and some heart, and they never quit.
Go Tigers!
What is up, everybody? My name is Jeffrey Gardner. Welcome back once again to another episode of Upset Alert. It is episode 92 of the Ultimate College Football Podcast, celebrating all 130 teams in FBS. Apologies for a bit of a longer intro than normal there. I did want to get back to the habit of mixing it up, making it a little different every week. No disrespect to the Andrew Booth clip that we've been playing for several weeks now, I think, but wanted to get back to the habit of kind of playing a different clip at the beginning of every episode, and couldn't decide between those two. I love the BYOG bring your own guts moment from Dabo Swinney after the win over Notre Dame, that of course a few years ago, and I also love that incredible call of Tulsa's overtime win over Tulane. So couldn't really decide between the two, decided to just roll with them both there. So apologies for a bit of a longer intro than you might be used to, especially if you're relatively new to the show. Might not have heard anything other than that Andrew Booth clip that we normally would open the show with there. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for joining us here today for Upset Alert. However you're joining us here today, we are back live on twitch.tv/robotbraineater after an episode off on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. We just did the audio version, and we are a day later than normal as well, I should say, today, just due to, as usual, some computer issues. It's always one, if it's not one thing, it's the other. It's a rare week where we deliver everything on time and as planned for this podcast. But thank you guys for your patience, getting the episode a day late, as I said. But I'll be posting it immediately following two podcast services, and that's another way, of course, that you can join us: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, all of those outlets. So for however you may be joining us today, thank you so much for doing so. If you do want to watch us live again, that's twitch.tv/robotbraineater, live here on video, uploaded to YouTube later, and then onto podcast services same day as well. So with all that housekeeping nonsense out of the way, of course, let's get right into what the podcast is all about, and that is kind of some college football analysis here. So we have just made it through Thanksgiving weekend. Hope everyone had a safe and happy Thanksgiving. And we are kind of moving now into a little bit of this kind of moment in college football where we're transitioning, right? We're transitioning from the bulk of the regular season, kind of the meat of the season, into conference championship season a little bit here, and into bowl season almost. So we're going to get into a lot of discussion as we kind of get into today's results from the weekend's games, where we're kind of getting into what does that mean in terms of the playoff picture, in terms of the conference championship picture, everything like that, because a lot of those races are really starting to take shape. When you look at these teams that are undefeated now, you're really looking at a lot of playoff contenders, and if not, at least conference championship contenders there. And so it's going to be an interesting day, I think, as we kind of start to see the field take shape a little bit in the college football playoff discussion, in the rankings, in the conference championship discussions. So with all that being said, let's get right into it. We did have some games on Thanksgiving Day, or a game on Thanksgiving Day, I should say. Utah State was hosting New Mexico. Utah State did win that one 41-27. Not much to say for those two teams there. They were both winless coming into that one. Utah State picking up their first win of the year. New Mexico continues to be less than great at football, shall we say. Moving into the Black Friday slate, we had a big one right off the bat in the noontime slot. Number 13, Iowa State at number 17, Texas. You're actually watching video highlights of this if you're watching live on Twitch or on YouTube later on. Iowa State picked up the road upset here, 23-20 over the Longhorns. I will say this surprised me, for one. Iowa State really just looks like a well-coached team out there. They take on, I guess, the mentality of the head coach. A lot of folks say, especially in college football, is true. And while there's a lot of questions about Tom Herman at Texas, I think there should be an equal amount of praise at Iowa State for just the coaching job that's been done there. The players really just taken to another level. I mean, you got a guy like Breece Hall at running back who is a legitimate Heisman Trophy contender for Iowa State, and just going on the road and winning against a pretty darn good Texas football team should be something to be celebrated in a season that has been pretty good overall for Iowa State, outside of the early loss to the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, of course. Moving right along, we have UMass at Liberty. Liberty won this one 45-0. That's about what you expected coming into this one. UMass, probably the worst team in college football this year. Liberty is kind of a fringe top 25 team right now, so good for the Flames, showing out a little bit against the Minutemen. We had number 24, Iowa, hosting Nebraska. Iowa won that one 26-20. Now, I've been vocal about, I don't know about this top 25 ranking for Iowa, just based on what they've done on the field thus far this season. They've already got a couple of losses, just a few wins. So I still am not sold on this team right now. As a top 25 team, they are moving back into that discussion for me, though. But a 6-point win over a really bad Nebraska team is not doing a ton to sell me on this Hawkeyes team. They're not going to be a top 25 team in our updated rankings over on Twitter at UpsetAlertPod. Moving along, we had a good ranked matchup. Number 2, Notre Dame at number 19, North Carolina. The Tar Heels have been really explosive on offense this year. Notre Dame's defense did a pretty good job of holding them for the most part. This one was close early. The Irish found some separation late, ultimately won 31-17 on the road against a good North Carolina team. This was another quiet, good win. It's not just beating the brakes off of somebody, but this is another quality win for the Fighting Irish this season. And friendly reminder that this team can still make the playoff even if they lose to Clemson in the ACC championship game. They are really sitting pretty in that conversation for the college football playoff right now is Notre Dame. We have UCF at USF, the war on I-4, and UCF was tested in this football game, surprisingly. South Florida has not been a very good team for most of the year, but they put up a cool 46 points on the Knights in that game, the war on I-4. UCF did win, though, a shootout 58-46. Quick analysis here. I mean, UCF is out of the AAC Conference Championship discussions at this point. They're not going to make it to their Conference Championship game, but they still are playing to kind of be in that top tier and looking for a good bowl game, hopefully. So UCF does pick up a win over there, even if not a very sexy win by just 2 scores over a very bad South Florida Bulls team. We had Wyoming win on the road 45-14 over a bad UNLV team. Good to see Wyoming bouncing back a little bit. This team is now 2-2. I think they're better than that record. And this game, they had a chance to flex their muscle a little bit, maybe straighten some things out on both sides of the football moving forward for the Cowboys there. We had Central Michigan at Eastern Michigan. This one turned out to be much closer than I imagined it would be. I thought Central Michigan would blow out the Eagles of Eastern Michigan on the road. It was a 31-23 final score. Chippewas of Central Michigan did win this one, but was really, really close game. Eastern Michigan actually started out really strong in this one with a double-digit lead, rather. I guess 2 scores works there as well. And really just Central Michigan had to chip away. No pun intended on the Chippewa mascot there. They had to just chip away at that lead throughout the course of the game. Central Michigan ultimately does come out on top, 31-23. Fortunately for me, actually a bit of a backdoor cover there. They were trailing the whole game and then wind up winning by 8. The point spread there was 7. So my pick actually stayed valid. That was one of my quote-unquote easy money picks. It wasn't easy money maybe last week, but Central Michigan did get the job done on the road against Eastern Michigan, 31-23. We had Stanford at Cal. This was a pretty darn good football game, which maybe we haven't been able to say in a few years. But, regardless of what these teams' records are coming into this one, they were both winless coming into this one, by the way. Stanford picks up their first win of the year, moves to 1-2. Cal drops to 0-3 to start the season, but a 24-23 close game, close road win on the road for Stanford, for the tree there. And really, it was an exciting finish, too. If anyone did happen to catch this one, ends essentially on a blocked field goal. Cal had a field goal try to take the lead with less than a minute remaining in the game. Stanford blocked the kick and then essentially just ran out the clock from there. So pretty exciting finish to that game over in California. We had number 15, Oregon, on the road against Oregon State. The Civil War, they call this one, and this was a shocker. This was a real shocker for me, and Oregon loses on the road against the Beavers of Oregon State. Something truly I just did not even fathom as a possibility. Looking at Oregon's schedule in the preseason, you'd think that maybe there's a chance for a loss there, but in all likelihood, that team was supposed to go undefeated this year in a short Pac-12 only schedule. Instead, they go on the road and lose to what I thought was a pretty lowly Oregon State team. They certainly are better than I thought they were, but still a team that's only sitting there at 2-2 through the first 4 games of the season, including this colossal upset over the top 15 Ducks. This was a 41-38 home win for Oregon State here. And you have to say, USC is now, in all likelihood, the only Pac-12 team that has a legitimate chance of making the college football playoff. And even for them, it is very, very slim. Right, it's got to be very, very slim. You now see a Washington team out of the Pac-12 North that might be emerging as the favorite. We'll get to them in just a little while here. But USC, certainly the overall favorite in the Pac-12 right now, has to be feeling good about their chances as far as the conference championship is concerned. But really, looking at their college football playoff chances out of the Pac-12, it just got even slimmer than what I would already have described as pretty slim there. So if you're a Pac-12 football fan, you wanted Oregon to win this game to try to get to that playoff if possible. I think Oregon was your best chance. Doesn't look like it's happening, quite frankly. We had Southern Miss and UAB, San Diego State and Fresno State both get canceled, and then we move into the Saturday slate of games here. We had Kentucky at number 6, Florida. Florida wins this one 34-10. The Gators take care of business here, really. Kentucky started off looking like they might be a little scrappy in this game. The Gators really just stomped on that pretty quickly in the game. You get more of the same from the Gators offense. Now, they didn't put up 50, 60 points in this game or anything like that, but Kyle Trask still quietly goes 21 of 27 in the game, 256 yards passing, and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. You can't argue too much with that. Gators rushed for about 100 yards in the game as well, so maybe a little more diverse on offense than they have been in their offensive performance, but still are going to lean as heavily as they possibly can on that arm of Kyle Trask, their Heisman favorite quarterback. We had number 12, Indiana, win against Maryland 27-11. Not a ton to talk about there. Indiana, of course, you worry about the hangover after losing a tough game that came down to the final moments, really, against Ohio State last week. So Indiana, good to see them bounce back with a win, not suffer 2 losses against Ohio State, essentially, so they get the win over the Terrapins there. We had number 23, Oklahoma State, beat Texas Tech 50-44, so this one a shootout, really, but the Cowpokes over there in OK State do pick up a close win over the Red Raiders. We had we had a 27-17 win, Penn State over Michigan. Neither one of these two teams have had the type of season that they would have hoped for. Michigan now 2-4, Penn State at 1-5, picking up their first win of the season. So good for the Nittany Lions, finally getting a win. I think maybe all it took was me picking against them. Perhaps I did that the week before, but it seemed like every week after Penn State lost week 1, I was saying, this is the week they're going to bounce back. This is the week they're going to bounce back. And at some point, either last week or the week before, I don't recall, that kind of shifted for me to Penn State's going to lose until further notice. So credit me with an assist maybe for the Penn State win over Michigan on the road there. Michigan's not a great football team this year. They might need to have a serious look at what their head coaching situation there is if they do want to get back in the national championship picture, in the even conference championship picture, honestly, at some point in the near future. Penn State might have to do the same, just because this year is a complete disaster for them after years and years of pretty solid top 10 type success. So both of those teams are definitely going to have to take a good, hard, long look in the mirror at the end of this season and decide who they want to be, who they want to go with going forward. Moving along, we had some action. Western Michigan hosting Northern Illinois. Western Michigan, the Broncos pick up a close win here, 30-27 over a pretty bad Northern Illinois team, but Western Michigan is quietly still undefeated. They're at 4-0, maybe creeping towards a top 25 type ranking this year. I do think a lot of the in-conference play this year is favoring the group of 5 teams, giving them a chance to shine a little bit more, because those better teams at the top of the group of 5 conferences do seem to be beating up on lesser competition a little bit. Look at what Coastal Carolina is doing in the Sun Belt. Look at what Liberty, for the most part, has done as an independent. Just a lot of teams, really. You could say Buffalo out of the MAC as well as Western Michigan to this point. I know they played less games. But really a lot of teams really kind of feasting on the lesser competition. Even to a lesser degree, you could say Cincinnati in the AAC. They do play a tougher schedule, but they're kind of feasting on the weaker teams in their conference to really pad that record, right? Pad that record and say, hey, we're 8-0, we're 9-0, whatever it may be, 8-1, and we deserve a shot to get into that playoff. So I think it's going to be a discussion that we have really as we get into this college football playoff discussion, as we get into some of the final ranking discussion. Quite frankly, strength of schedule is going to be a huge factor, because you're going to have teams in the SEC who I think deserve to be higher ranked than maybe a one-loss team out of a group of 5 conference that might have 3 or 4 losses in the SEC this year. It's going to be a discussion that we're going to see hashed and rehashed as time goes on this end of the regular season here. We had some more action here. Ohio hosting Bowling Green. Ohio wins 52-10 in this one. Not a ton to talk about here. Bowling Green is bad. They continue to be bad at football. Ohio moves to 2-1. They are a decent team out of the MAC. Probably one of the better teams in the conference, actually. We had Buffalo, speaking of better teams in the MAC, drop a cool 70 points on Kent State. This is not a terrible Kent State team. They get their first loss of the season here, 70-41. Buffalo, to me, are the favorites in the MAC right now. They are the team I picked preseason to win the MAC, and I think this team really looks good. They really are sitting pretty in terms of winning the MAC. Now, they're not going to go to any crazy New Year's Six Bowl, I don't think, just because of the other teams they're competing against who play tougher schedules, like Cincinnati, for example. Even you could throw an independent like BYU into there as well, or Liberty, perhaps. But yeah, this is a good Buffalo team. They're probably going to make it to that MAC championship game and at least get a chance to play for it there. We have Ball State at Toledo. Ball State picked up a good road win here, 27-24. Ball State has clawed their way out of the triple-digit rankings on our updated rankings over at Upset Alert Pod on Twitter. They are now out of the 100s and into, I believe, the 80s or 90s, somewhere in there. So good on Ball State, starting the season off 3-1 here. We had SMU at East Carolina. This one was a bit of a shocker to me as well. ECU wins this one 52-38, rather. It was bizarre to me. I thought this SMU team was really on the verge of being a top 25 team. We actually did have them ranked in our top 25 last week over on our rankings of all 130 teams on Twitter. Again, at Upset Alert Pod on Twitter, if you want to see those full 127 team rankings. SMU was in our top 25 last week coming into this football game, and I expected them to just go on the road and really beat up on East Carolina, quite frankly, who has been one of the worst teams in football this year. And ECU picked up a bit of a shocker of a win to me. Not just a shocking win, but dropping over 50 points on this SMU defense. That's pretty impressive. That is pretty darn impressive there. And really, I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to catch much of this game, so just looking at the box score now is interesting to see that Shane Buechele, who really has been a rock, he has been the foundation of this SMU offense all season long, did throw 2 picks in this game. So the turnovers certainly, I imagine, were a factor in that SMU road loss to what we would think of as a lesser East Carolina team. We had Georgia State and Georgia Southern. Georgia State hosting this season. Hashtag Southern not State. Hashtag State not Southern. Georgia State picks up the home win 30-24 in this one. So good on the Panthers. I should have rolled with my gut on this one. I picked this win for Georgia State in the preseason, kind of backed off on it on my weekly predictions on Thursday's episode. Should have gone with my gut here. Georgia State did pick up the win over what I still think of as a better Georgia Southern football team. But the Panthers certainly come out with the impressive home win, even though it was pretty close on Saturday. We had NC State at Syracuse. NC State hands Syracuse yet another loss. It's 36-29, advantage for the Wolfpack there. We did have a little bit of college football history made on Saturday. Now, unfortunately for Vanderbilt, things did not go their way, but they will be forever kind of linked to a historical moment in college football. We had the first ever female player to participate in a Power 5 football game, so pretty exciting stuff there. For Vanderbilt, they did have the kicker, their entire kicker unit essentially quarantined due to COVID, contact tracing, or direct COVID exposure. So Sarah Fuller, the keeper or goalie, as some of you would say, of the now SEC champion Vanderbilt women's soccer team, was called upon to be a replacement kicker for Vanderbilt in this game on Saturday. So the Commodores did not cross the 50 line, the 50-yard line, many times in this game. I think at halftime was just once that they had been even across the 50. So she did not get a chance to do any offensive damage really, but did kick off the second half opening kickoff. Vanderbilt, however, did lose this one by a score of 41-0 to the Missouri Tigers. So good on head coach Eli Drinkwitz, good on the Missouri Tigers for really just putting the pedal to the metal and beating up on a bad Vanderbilt team. Actually beat them so bad they fired the coach. Which is a little bit of something else to talk about. We now have 2 SEC head coaching jobs that we know of, at least, that are going to be available in the off season. We had, of course, earlier this season, Will Muschamp at South Carolina parted ways with the program. They fired him there, and now we have seen Derek Mason fired at Vanderbilt. So things are getting a little bit interesting, especially over in the SEC East. We saw the shakeups in the West at Ole Miss and Mississippi State last year, and it's going to be interesting going forward to see who comes in to fulfill these jobs, especially somewhere like Vanderbilt. There's been a lot of talk about Jeff Monken from Army. Does someone like that even have interest in taking a job at Vanderbilt just because it's an SEC head coaching job? Or do you say, I'm better off at Army than Vanderbilt, who literally hasn't won a game this season? So it could be interesting going forward to see what the philosophy is of these coaches that are looking at these jobs. Anyway, we're going to move along. I'm rambling a little bit. We've got Akron, who was hosting Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio blows out Akron, as you would expect them to, 38-7 over the Zips, who continue to be one of the worst teams in college football. We had number 20, Coastal Carolina. I will continue to say they are underrated at number 20 in the college football playoff ranking. They went over Texas State 49-14. Go Chanticleers. They continue to beat up on the lesser teams in the Sun Belt, and the Shots moved to 9-0. We had Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. Speaking of beating up on lesser competition in the Sun Belt, the Raging Cajuns dropped 70 points on the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. They're in-state rivals, of course, and one of the worst teams in college football this year. That one was 70-20, advantage Raging Cajuns. We had UTSA win 49-17 over North Texas. The Roadrunners picked up a pretty good win in that one at home. North Texas, not a great football team, frankly. But UTSA continues to outperform their preseason expectations. They moved to 7-4 on the year. How about the Roadrunners? Pretty good in Conference USA this year. We had Arkansas State lose another one that I would not have expected them to. They moved to just 3-7 on the year after a home loss to South Alabama. South Alabama wins that one 38-31. The Jaguars have outperformed expectations a little bit this year, I think it's safe to say. We did have, of course, the Iron Bowl, number 1 Alabama hosting number 22 Auburn. Now, a lot of folks have pointed out that Auburn has had most of their Iron Bowl success under Gus Malzahn in Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn. this game followed that trend, quite frankly. Alabama really beat up on Auburn in this game. It was never close, particularly. 42-13 final. Tide win that one and continue to roll toward the SEC championship game. We had number 3 Clemson hosting Pitt. Clemson rolls here as well, 52-17. Trevor Lawrence playing his first game in several weeks after the COVID exposure, and then the game against Florida State being canceled or postponed, I guess we should say would be the correct word, just hours before kickoff. So Trevor Lawrence did get a chance to play in this one, of course, and shake off the rust a little bit. I think he is going to be fine in the long term. I think this Clemson team is going to be fine. They look like a legitimate playoff contender, and if they win against Notre Dame in that ACC championship game, or whoever it may be, I guess it still technically could be someone other than Notre Dame, they will make the playoff if they win that game, long story short. We had one of our biggest upsets of not just the week, but of the college football season, I think, when number 8 Northwestern went on the road to East Lansing to play Sparty. Michigan State beat Northwestern 29-20. This one was close for a while as I was kind of watching it Saturday night. And just keeping an eye on it, it just kept getting deeper in the game and staying close, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing almost. Michigan State has just 2 wins now on the season. They're over Michigan and over Northwestern. This is a team that, just for the record, has lost to Rutgers by 2 scores, was beaten 49-7 by Iowa, and shut out 24-0 against Indiana. And this team has found a way to beat not just the in-state rival Michigan Wolverines, but now a 9-point win over number 8 Northwestern, who is a legitimate threat to win the Big Ten West. Actually, still probably the favorite, I guess, to win the Big Ten West, with Wisconsin essentially disqualified for having too many games canceled. So it's just a weird time. Weird time in the Big Ten. It is a little bit all over the place. Ohio State is really the only stable team completely in the Big Ten, you would have to say at this point in time. Indiana certainly seems like a good team, but it's just weird. It's weird in the Big Ten. In the Big Ten right now, almost as weird as it has been in the Big 12 this year. We had Troy at App State. App State wins 47-10. Comfortable Sun Belt Conference win there for the Mountaineers. We had the Egg Bowl, of course. Always some shenanigans going on in the Egg Bowl. No dog peeing celebration in this year's Egg Bowl. If you don't know what I'm talking about, again, you got to look up the Elijah Moore touchdown celebration from the 2019 edition of the Egg Bowl that ultimately cost Ole Miss that football game. Just crazy stuff. They did not cost themselves the game this year, though. Lane Kiffin gets the win 31-24 over Mike Leach, the Pirate, and Mississippi State. So good on the Rebels. They now move to 4-4 on the season. Mississippi State falls to just 2-6. We had Rutgers on the road against Purdue. Quality win for Rutgers here. They have played some decent games against a lot of folks, but not a ton of wins. They do pick up their second win here, though. Purdue falls to 2-3 on the season. We had Louisville at Boston College. Boston College, expectedly, I think, picks up a win here, 34-27. BC moves to a respectable 6-4 in the ACC this year. Of course, with their one out-of-conference game mixed in there, too. Colorado wins 20-10 over San Diego State. Colorado very quietly undefeated. They moved to 3-0 on the season. Definitely not something I expected in the preseason when I picked them to be the worst team in the Pac-12 this year. We had LSU at number 5. Yes, number 5. Texas A&M. A&M wins 20-7 here. The Tigers, I guess, respectable performance to not just get blown out. The way their defense has played at times this season, I thought that Texas A&M, frankly, would put up a ton of points in this game. They did not. So give a little bit of credit to the Tigers' defense for not just folding all game. But still about what you would expect there, a sizable, comfortable win for the Aggies at home. Memphis wins a low-scoring one, 10-7 on the road against Navy. Duke loses one on the road to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech puts up a 50-burger, 56-33 over the Blue Devils in ACC play. We had Baylor and Kansas State. Baylor actually gets the home win here, which was a little bit of a surprise to me. 32-31 over the Wildcats of K-State. Baylor moves to just 2-5 on the season. K-State falls to 4-5. We had number 9, Georgia, on the road against South Carolina. Georgia played probably their most complete game of the entire 2020 season this year, other than I guess you can argue that performance against Auburn, where they were truly dominant. A 45-16 win for the Dogs over South Carolina. Not quite the passing game fireworks that we saw last week against Mississippi State from JT Daniels, but a much more complete running attack and a much better defensive performance against South Carolina than the Dogs had against the Maroon Bulldogs from Starkville the week prior. We had Washington win 24-21 over Utah, so the Huskies picking up the win by a field goal there. Again, I kind of talked earlier, hinted at this a little bit. Washington moves to 3-0, maybe emerges now with the Oregon loss as the team to beat in the Pac-12 North. Of course, they do still have to play Oregon December the 12th, so not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. Those two teams will have to match up. That will be the game that determines the Pac-12 North. So pretty exciting. Washington and Oregon football a couple of weeks from now. But currently they hold wins over Oregon State, who just beat Oregon, over Arizona, and over a decent Utah team who, although in spite of the 0-2 record, I do think the Utes are still a pretty good football team. We had UCLA hosting Arizona. UCLA wins this one 27-10. The Bruins bouncing back a little bit here. They get to 500 once again. Arizona falls to 0-3. Some close losses in there. The close loss to USC, of course, for Arizona. But this team, at some point, you gotta address the record for what it is, which is winless for the Wildcats thus far. We had TCU on the road against Kansas, winning 59-23. That's about what you expect there, I think. And then Hawaii hosting Nevada wins 24-21, giving Nevada their first loss of the season. This was a 5-0 Nevada team coming into this football game, and a team that, quite frankly, was right on the fringe of being a top 25 team in our rankings. Over at Upset Alert Pod on Twitter. That, of course, has changed a little bit now thanks to the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. This is a team that I expected to be good coming into the preseason, maybe better than Nevada, actually. But based on the performance thus far this season, Nevada really was the team to beat in this one. Hawaii just found a way to get it done. Now, we did have a whole host of other games on Saturday that were scheduled and either canceled or postponed, so I'll just read all of those off real quick. We did miss out on number 4, Ohio State at Illinois, number 25, Tulsa at Houston, Louisiana Tech at FIU, UTEP at Rice, Minnesota at number 16, Wisconsin, FAU at Middle Tennessee, number 7, Cincy at Temple, San Jose State at Boise State. Actually would have loved to have seen that one. Number 11, Oklahoma at West Virginia. Would have liked to have seen that one as well. And Virginia at Florida State. So we did miss out on a decent number of respectable matchups due to postponements or cancellations this past week. And we will go ahead and get into, there's 2 games scheduled for this coming Thursday, December the 3rd. We'll go ahead and get our predictions on there. Of course, we'll be back on Thursday with our full predictions episode where we'll get the Friday night and Saturday predictions. Some good football coming up this weekend. But first, the Thursday predictions here. Thursday night, 6 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. We've got Louisiana Tech 4-3 coming into North Texas at 3-4. Louisiana Tech a 2.5-point favorite here. I am going to roll with La Tech on the road in that one. The 2.5-point margin feels a little small for me, frankly. Louisiana Tech has not been great all this season, but they have had their moments where they've shined. North Texas really hasn't been very good for the most part. So I'm going to roll with the Bulldogs on the road there. And then 9:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network, we have Air Force coming in at 2-2 at Utah State at 1-4. Utah State, of course, just picked up their first win this past weekend over New Mexico, and we have the Falcons of Air Force coming in as a 10-point favorite. I like Air Force. I don't know about the 10-point margin necessarily, how confident I would be on that, but I do think Air Force is going to pick up the road win there on Thursday evening. And really, that's going to just about wrap us up for episode number 92 of Upset Alert. As I said, we've got some college football coaching drama that we have now started to come into a little bit. Derek Mason fired at Vanderbilt. Will Muschamp fired at South Carolina. We've got just a lot going on as we come into the last little bit of the college football season here. We're going to continue to get that head coaching drama. We're going to continue to get some big games, including this week. Like I said, Thursday will be our proper picks episode where we get into all of the picks for the coming weekend's games. But just to give you a little bit of a taste, we've got Louisiana and App State in the Sun Belt this weekend. We've got Ohio State at a Michigan State team that just had a really exciting upset win. We've got Texas A&M at Auburn. We've got Texas at Kansas State on here. We've got some decent football games, I think. Kent State, Miami, Ohio out of the MAC, if that's your cup of tea. We've got Liberty at number 20, Coastal Carolina. Should be a really interesting one in terms of a litmus test of kind of where a couple of teams that have won a lot of games are this year. Liberty 9-1. Coastal Carolina will come in at 9-0 to that football game. So that one's really interesting. We've got Indiana at Wisconsin, of course, a huge game in the Big Ten. West Virginia at Iowa State. We've got just a lot of good football games on here, quite frankly, for this week. And a lot to look forward to as we get into conference championship time as well. One that we're probably not looking forward to as much, and I'll only address it in this lighthearted way because we know that they're the defending national champions. LSU hosting Alabama this weekend. Alabama comes in, if you can believe it, as a 28.5-point favorite on the road against the defending national champions. Really is just bizarre, isn't it? Thinking about how much college football teams can change in just 1 year. You're talking about a team that was one of the all-time great college football teams last year in LSU with Joe Burrow at quarterback, Joe Brady, their passing game coordinator. This year you go there, Joe Brady's gone, Joe Burrow's gone. A lot of their other talented players are gone, including, of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first-round drafted NFL running back. So it's really just bizarre thinking about how much different a college football team can look year in and year out versus, say, something like the NFL, for example, where you got guys signing these big contracts for years and years. It's just a crazy thing to think about as we move forward into what will be, I guess, now week 14, my goodness, of college football in the 2020 season. So, of course, we will be here, as I said, back on Thursday, doing our normal picks episode where we'll go through every game, make our picks, every game in FBS college football, that is, of course, for the coming weekend. In the meantime, in between time, you can find us where you always can, which is twitch.tv/robotbraineater. If you want to watch our live streams, if you follow me on there, that will give you an email notification whenever I go live, and it'll let you know that we're going live for Upset Alert, the episode number, all that good nonsense, so that you can come and hang out in the chat and drop your predictions for games or your thoughts on college football or whatever it may be. We're always over on Twitter as well at Upset Alert Pod. On Saturdays, you can see some live score updates I normally try to do on there throughout the day as the games are going, as well as just some various thoughts throughout the week, retweeting all the big college football news as it becomes readily available, and really just all over the place. Like I said, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, pretty much anywhere that you would normally find any of your favorite podcasts. Those are the same exact places that you can find us as well. We hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. We hope that you had a safe and happy Thanksgiving. We hope that going forward, you can take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever your podcast of service of choice is. It helps us out greatly to get more eyeballs and more ears on the podcast. If you can't find it in you to take the time to do that, then just tell a friend about the podcast. We appreciate that as well. Again, just thank you guys so much. I think I've killed enough time at this point for listening to the show. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until Thursday, we will see you later.